everybody! Today we are going to turn snowballs into stars. Let me show you how. Hi everybody, it is April and I'm in my craft room, and today we are going to take these fat quarters that I bought while I was in Phoenix and turn them into a quilt. So let me show you the fabrics that this quilt is going to be made up of. So what I've done with these fat quarters is I have created two 10-inch squares from each fat quarter. So I now have two stacks of 10-inch squares. And what I did is I cut the long 10-inch strip, divided that into two squares, and I have a little bit left over. And then what was left on the other side of the 10 inches, which would be around 8 inches because they're 18 inches wide, I have this, and this is kind of left over. Oh, and just so you see, this is what I have left from my fat quarter bunch stack. And I know that I will forget my little ruler is under there. And I decided that all of these snowball corners that I'm going to put on these 15 10-inch squares are going to be the same color. And the color that I decided to go with, that I thought matched everything, is this grunge. You knew it was gonna be grunge. I love myself some grunge. So this is a Moda grunge from Basic Gray. And it's almost, I'm gonna hold it at an angle, like a denim. But it's just got some lighter blue, some darker blue, a little bit of what might even look like gray. And it matches each of these 10-inch squares, amazingly enough. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cut out 4-inch squares. And that is going to be what goes in each corner of these 15 10-inch blocks. So I'm going to need 4 times 15. I think that might be 60. 15 and 15 is 30 and 30 and 30, 60. So I need 60 4-inch squares. So guess what I'm going to do next? I'm going to cut out 60 4-inch squares. I don't know whose idea this was to do this way. So first, let's see how many 4-inch squares I can get out of one width of fabric strip of my grunge. I will probably break out the June Taylor cutting thing once I get a stack. All right, so I should get at least 10. If my width of fabric is 40 inches and I'm cutting out 4 inches, well, then I should get, yeah, because usually your width of fabric is more than 40 inches. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 9. Really? Really? 1, 2, 8, 9, 10. See, I can't even count, let alone add or subtract or any of that other stuff. All right, So I'm going to cut out 5 strips of this and break out my June Taylor cut and something. I can never remember the name of it. I'm gonna run an iron over these real quick in case Tracy or Di are watching this video. I don't want to get in trouble. It is the June Taylor Shape Cut Ruler, and I don't want to blind you, so I'm not going to. I'm going to take this and cut my 4-inch blocks, and I stacked all 5 of my strips together. I may have gotten more than I needed. Awesome. I cannot believe that I do not use this more often. I mean, look how fast that went. And look, a big old stack of 4 by 4 inch squares. Okay. How do you make a snowball? Let me show you how. Here is an example of a snowball block. Now we're going to create snowballs with this fabric. So I have all of these 4-inch squares, and I need to mark them down the center. I need to mark them down the center. If you feel comfortable that you can take this to the sewing machine and sew from this corner to this corner and do it in a straight line, you go for it. I am all about saving time. Now this is how I'm going to have to mark my 40 blocks. Yes, it is tedious, I'm not even gonna lie, but it will help me stay on a straight line. I will not judge you if you do not mark yours. Now what I have is this Choco Ace pen, and it is white ink. So since I have a dark piece of fabric, it shows up as white ink. If you are using one of these pens, you have to be a little patient. Not only because you're going to be doing 40 of these, but this particular pen takes a minute to show up. So at first I thought, oh no, it's not marking, but if you notice, that white line gets darker. Here is what I like to do. Elmer's glue. This glue will wash away, and I am just going to put enough on my square so that it will stay put when I'm moving from my mat to my sewing machine. Another option is to clip. So I just set my square on my square and then clip on the outside edge, and then far enough away from the line that my sewing foot doesn't hit it. If you're not a clipper and you're a pinner, then you can easily pin your squares in place and then take them to the sewing machine, and I'm going to chain piece. So let me get all of my squares attached, and then we'll go to the sewing machine. Oliver got here just in time to help me, didn't you, buddy? Uh-oh, I guess he doesn't like snowballs. Do you not like snowballs, bud? No snowballs for you? Nope. Sewing a snowball is pretty easy. You want to sew directly on the line that you have marked. I will also show you how I chain piece. I just take my next block, line it up, and they will overlap here. They don't have to overlap in between the 2 snowball corners. And that's it. I just keep on going until I've sewn all of one side and then I flip them. Here we have a stack of snowballed squares. So what we're going to do is take the square and trim these edges so that we can press it. So I'm going to take my little ruler and I'm going to put, so here this first mark is 1/4 of an inch. So that's how far I want to cut away from my seam. And I want to make sure that my rotary cutter is on the right hand side of my seam. Because if I cut on the inside of this block, then I am just cutting off this corner. I don't want to cut off the whole corner. I want to cut off part of the corner, keep my seam, and then I can fold it back and it's snowballed. So I do that to all 4 corners. And if your seam allowance is a little more, that's okay. Now let's go to the iron and see how much prettier this looks when it's all nice and pressed. And there is the block when it's all neatly pressed. So I've put all of my squares up on the wall. I actually had 32. I don't know how I managed that. Notice the 2 that I pulled are the gray. That could change. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see the star in the block, but what I did is I put a 10-inch plain block and then snowball, plain, snowball, plain. 5 across, 6 down. We'll have to see when I get it all together whether or not you can actually see that star. Now I've also put these strips on the side, and I did over here, I have them right next to these blocks. I think I need a color in between, and I'm not sure if I should use the blue that I used for the snowballs. Not real sure. Let me know in the comments what you think I should use. In the meantime, I'm going to put all the blocks together and then come back and see if maybe I have a better idea of what I need to do to finish it up. I'm finding that as I'm putting my rows together, it's easier if the snowball square is on the bottom while I am connecting the 2 blocks. Just a little tip. All of my quilt is together, but I was struggling as to what to use as a border. I like the strips that I had left of the fat quarters that I used to create this, but something just wasn't jiving. And then I thought, scrappy border. So I cut those leftover strips into 3 1/4 inch strips. Now let's hold this up and see what we think. So here is my scrappy border. I went a little overboard on the sewing of my strips together. Let me cut this down so that we can actually put it up on the wall and see what it looks like. Before I cut this down, I want to make sure that my strips are nice and flat. I have this big, long strip. So what I'm going to do is I need to fold it, and then I'm going to fold it again. so that it is straight across. And then I'm going to trim the edge, and I am going to cut this 4.5-inch border 4 times. Now I'm going to add these to the sides of my quilt, and my quilt top will be done. I have added these borders to either side of the quilt, and that is exactly what I thought it needed. Let me do one across the bottom. I like it. It brings it all together. Now I'm going to add these borders, and I'll be back with the final quilt.